We've just concluded the first Amazonas Summit as part of the Amazonas Initiative. And I'm thrilled to say that it has exceeded my expectations on every single measure of success that we have. We've brought together leaders from the public, private, and NGO sectors for this immersive experience, understanding nature, being at one with nature, and exploring market-led, nature-based solutions to protecting the Amazon rainforest.
Well, the Concordia Amazon Initiative, basically what it intends to do is to connect the public sector, the private sector, the NGOs, and also investors, communities, indigenous people, and try to identify market-driven, nature-based solutions for the Amazon. So this initiative tries to bring everybody together, identify the solutions, and try to make them viable, scalable, replicable, and sustainable.
This initiative is different than any of our other initiatives in that we leave the big cities, we leave the big convention halls, and we become immersed in the subjects that we're talking about, not just in the discussions, but in our experiences, everything that we feel.
We came here because there was one purpose: to be close to nature and to think in a Maloca way. So we all left our titles aside and we were all trying to know each other and try to learn from each other, but having nature as something that united us. So one of the things that I also enjoyed is that having people from the indigenous communities at a very interesting leadership role allowed the group to identify with them what for them is missing. The purposes that we have for next year is to bring indigenous entrepreneurs to present projects that can be financed by some of these organizations or connected by some of these organizations with potential buyers. Next year, we should have at least 3 or 5 projects that will be either already structured or on the run or working out, and being able to translate into effective mechanisms. The power of Concordia is the power of convening, but this is a way to convene with solutions of immediate action.
Looking forward to being with everyone in New York in September to present our first solutions report as part of the Amazonas Initiative, where we will outline a number of key areas, not that will happen over time, but will happen now, given the urgency of the situation with the Amazon rainforest. We have until 2030, but maybe we don't have until 2030. We need to act now, and that is what Concordia is here to inspire and to lead.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage His Excellency Iván Duque, former President of Colombia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here in this afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to Matthew Swift, to George Logotitis, to Nicolas Logotitis, to all of you, and especially to the great group that was with us in July in Ecuador, witnessing this amazing experience of the first Concordia Amazonic Initiative Summit. And I want to begin by saying that 1 year ago, we were here sharing the expectations of something that Concordia has never done before, which was to go to the heart of the jungle and gather the best group possible of minds, entrepreneurs, scientists, leaders from NGOs, from the multilateral development banks, investors, and gather in a way in which we were talking on solutions, creating bonding, and identifying market-driven, nature-based impact solutions for the Amazon. And we did it, as you saw in the video, in a maloca way. What is a maloca? A maloca is a sacred place where some of the Amazonas indigenous communities gather, and they gather without a title. They gather to work together, to add efforts one another, and we did that in the Amazon. This amazing group was there for more than 3 days, and during those 3 days, we talked about the challenges the Amazonas faces, starting with the one that each one of you and every person in the planet should know. Without the Amazon, it's going to be almost impossible for the Western Hemisphere to reach the national determined contributions to reduce by 45% the emissions towards 2030 or become carbon neutral by 2050. We have lost millions of hectares. We have lost the territory of France and Germany together, or California and Texas together in the last 4 decades. But we have lost in the planet, in the last 5 decades, almost 70% of the wildlife and many of the wildlife in the Amazon. So we won't be able to do good in terms of climate action if we don't bring deforestation to zero in the Amazon. So this group was thinking on how to do it, with what kind of mechanisms we could act, and how Concordia, with the power of convening public and private sector, can be an active developer of those solutions. And one of the most interesting things that we found is that we had sessions where we talked about financial instruments. We had sessions in which we spoke about promoting indigenous communities' ventures in the Amazon, bringing possibilities for Amazon products to be known in the world, but also thinking about the protection of fresh water, the protection of species that are endangered. And we decided that we will come here to New York to this Concordia gathering that you have enjoyed in the last days with the first Amazonic Initiative Solutions Report. The report has been released this morning. It has been received by more than 70,000 persons that are in the list of distribution of Concordia. And you will find that this amazing, talented group of people focused on elements that will have an impact that we want to trigger and have ready for next year. And what kind of solutions are we talking about? One of the most important ones is that the Amazon requires an impact investment facility that could do a multiplicity of interventions. The first one, be prepared to build biodiversity credits, to build carbon credits that are full of integrity, the capacity of scrutiny that would allow a massive mobilization of capital in the 8 countries that share this bioma that is almost the size of Australia, or as I have said many times here, almost the same size of the United States without Alaska. But that massive mobilization requires not only to have the buyers of those credits or those potential credits, but the supply. And the supply is based on high quality project preparation. So this facility will be able not only to present the projects, but be able to call the buyers in order to have the integrity needs that the market requires today more than ever. But we also thought, just the credits are not the solution. They're a very important tool, but we need to combine it with more elements. And that's why this impact investment facility is thought so that we can irrigate seed capital, angel investment, and venture investment for small, medium companies that are born in the heart of the Amazon and that involve also the participation of indigenous communities. But we also believe that a facility like that can be able to provide guarantees, can be able to structure green bonds, and can be also a tool to help the countries build their green taxonomies and even their green taxonomies in the Amazonic territories. But we also had a conversation on how could we connect other needs from communities. And that's why one of the elements that was highly discussed was how can we combine efforts with the work that WRI or Conservation International or the Best Research Fund or the Nature Conservancies have done to think about a new economy in the Amazon, where the bioeconomy, where we can explore the possibilities of ecotourism and biotourism, connects aggregated value chains with communities. And we then also proposed, and you'll find this in the report, the urgent need that the US FDA, for example, or the European trade authorities guarantee that products from the Amazon can be bought by consumers, by companies, and create aggregated value chain in which products from the Amazon like Sachainchi, Copasu, Camu Camu, among many others, will be able to get to other markets, generate a sustainable amount of cash flow for the communities that participate in the aggregated value chain, and put an end to the incentives of illegal cattle, illegal wood, illegal crops, and illegal mining. Those conversations, those discussions, and the possibility to activate this obviously was not going to happen overnight. So in this report, we have said that we are creating specific task forces with members of the group that participated in the summit. And I was very happy this morning when we saw most of the participants, again, sitting together with all their commitment. And what we decided is to act now. Act now significates that we're going to be next year with this facility ready to be launched, that we will have eligible projects to be financed from ventures driven by Amazonic indigenous communities and by young entrepreneurs in the Amazonic countries. And it's also a call to action to have a set of investors from different parts of the world looking at the Amazon for the urgent need of protecting biodiversity and to protect the sacred land that we need to achieve our victory against the impact of climate change. So this is possible, and I recall that when we started this conversation a year ago, we said that countries in the global south, and particularly in the Amazonic regions, have to be seen as superpowers of biodiversity. A country like Brazil, a country like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Guyana, Suriname, they're countries that their richness in biodiversity has not been measured. But it's a richness that doesn't have any limit whatsoever. So what could happen if we were able to account that big asset into the way we value GDP, or in the way we value the contribution that these countries can make to contain the effects of climate change? So Concordia has proven that if we were able in just 1 year to have all this magnificent group of minds sitting together, putting all these options together, we will definitely be able next year to demonstrate that out of the prosperous mechanism of convening, we will have the first impact investment facility, not for profit, but to generate a flow of resources that will be continuously reinvested in order to produce the impact we want and move the countries to the fact that we have to get to zero deforestation as soon as possible. Because if we don't do it, the Amazon in less than a decade will become a net contributor of emissions and not a contention wall as it has been historically. This picture that I'm sharing of indigenous communities, in this case from my country, Colombia, in Vaupés, we want this to be the gathering momentum for communities in all the 8 countries and for all the participants in next year's event to be able to have them as our main partners to protect the biodiversity treasure of the Amazonas biome. Where are we going to have next year Amazonas Summit? This is a beautiful picture of a sacred place in Guyana. This is one of the most important national falls on the planet. And Guyana is a country that has achieved zero deforestation. Guyana is a country that has produced in the last 15 years a low carbon development strategy. And it's a country that at the same time wants to move from a high dependent on oil and gas electricity supply system to activate a fully system of supply of electricity based on non-conventional renewables, and needs as well all the resources it has from oil and gas to transform the well-being of its citizens. President Ali, you saw him here, said he wanted to have the Amazonas Initiative Summit in its territory. And next year, I am pretty sure that we will all be in Guyana launching some of the projects that were thought by this great group that is going to keep on expanding, and we expect to activate those projects so that by 2025, the last week of July, when we think about COP30 that will take place in Brazil in the state of Pará, we will have demonstrated effects of how an impact facility driven by solutions based on market mechanisms will be the model, sustainable, scalable, and replicable for the other ecosystems in the world that are needed to protect our planet. So, ladies and gentlemen, I remember what George Logothetis shared with us 2 days ago about a conversation he had with John McCain. We have to use our brain to overcome the pain. John McCain said that phrase helped him pass through the difficult circumstances of being a war prisoner for years. We have to use our brains to overcome the pain of deforestation. We need to use our brain to overcome the pain of the destruction of biodiversity. And we need to use our brains to overcome the pain that the future generations will feel if we don't act now in the Amazon. You have witnessed that what started last year as an initiative has been able to gather one of the most brightest groups of minds working in a Maloca way for this sanctuary of biodiversity. And if we have done only that in 1 year, next year we'll see how an impact facility will become the mechanism to attract investors and work with communities for the benefit of all. Thank you very much.